In this video, I will discuss every single NFL team and determine are they threatening or not. How seriously should we take that team? So we're going to be starting off with the NFC East. We're going to be going through them East, West, South, and North, I think, in that order. And then we're going to be doing this with the NFC and then going through the AFC. Every single team. I wish I could edit these videos, but again, don't have the equipment for it. So, in the NFC East, I think the first thing we're going to talk about is my personal favorite, the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles should be very threatening this year. First of all, the Eagles have now acquired Saquon Barkley from the draft. Saquon Barkley was the franchise running back of the New Jersey Giants, but now he's on the Eagles. And he's very difficult to contain. He is very difficult to contain. Saquon was a big reason why the Giants were able to make the playoffs in the 2022 season. And he's going to be a lot better than DeAndre Swift, who could not run all that well. You also have offensive weapons like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith that you have to realize they're becoming right at you as the wide receivers. And listen, I'm not saying I like Hurts' deep balls, like the deep balls he throws, but those good receivers really help out when he gets it right. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer. I'm going to be honest, I'm pessimistic about Jalen Hurts. And I don't think that he has what it takes in him. I think that, he a lot of times gets carried by the fact that he has good receivers. But we have Kenny Pickett on the team now. And unlike Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett isn't as great with pushing the ball downfield. But he doesn't have the same turnover problems. Jalen Hurts literally had 20 turnovers in the last season. And I know that Week 13 was a blowout, and so was the wild card round. But those are the last two times Hurts, didn't have a turnover. In between every single game he did, he fumbled in Week 14. He had 2 picks in Week 15. He got an interception in Week 16, and in Week 17, and in Week 18. So Jalen Hurts does a really bad job with, as far as protecting the ball goes. He really can't protect the ball very well. Whether or not he's fumbling or getting an interception, he has a hard time. He gets picked off a lot. Kenny Pickett doesn't get picked off the same way that Jalen Hurts does. Finally, you have to look at coaching, and I know that the Eagles are keeping Nick Sirianni. To be honest, though, it's kind of justified. Nick Sirianni led the Eagles to the playoffs in his first 3 years, something that no previous Eagles head coach had done. And his winning percentage is of .666 in his first 3 years. That's good. I think that, the Sean Desai wasn't great, but demoting him in favor of Matt Patricia was a very idiotic move. Brian Johnson also did not know what he was doing, but I think that I'm not too high on Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, considering what the Chargers 2023 offense looked like for them and what Vic Fangio did to the Broncos, but I think that they'll at least be somewhat competent. And I think that you look at the Eagles and they have improved quite a bit during free agency, and I am happy about that. So that's that. The Dallas Cowboys. Now, from a playoff perspective, I'm never going to say the Cowboys should be taken seriously. But for the regular season, they could be threatening. They could be. They didn't really do that much in the offseason. But they were 12-5 the last 3 years. And, I sort of see that holding out. Mike McCarthy embarrasses himself in every single important game they play, but it's not always the worst thing in the world. Like, he was an idiot in the game against the Seahawks, and the Cowboys still won that. So, you never know with the Cowboys. So, they're dangerous. The Giants, they don't have a good draft pick because they foolishly thought that beating the Eagles was a good idea, as if it was going to matter anyway. And now they can't get a great draft pick. On top of that, the Giants, when they made the playoffs in 2022, they had a very easy schedule, and they had a negative 6-point differential. The Giants, look more like their true self this year. And they also just lost Saquon Barkley, so I'm not too high on the Giants doing anything. But the Commanders, they fired Ron Rivera, and they have Dan Quinn now. I think that Dan Quinn will do a better job than Ron Rivera. Finally, I also think that when you look at the Commanders, they're gonna have a very high draft pick. I think number 2 overall, depending on who they get with the number 2 pick for a quarterback or whatever they get. I think they could be very dangerous. For the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers are a team that they honestly just look like they have the most firepower in the NFC, which is terrifying. Purdy is a system quarterback in my opinion, but when you have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk on the offense, I know Ayuk might be leaving, but still, you have to just think as to how stacked this team is. And they also have Nick Bosa and Greenlaw on the defensive side of the ball. There's a reason why they made the NFC Championship the last 3 years. They're actually like a good team. They're actually legitimately like a good team. Now, as far as the Seattle Seahawks, they just fired Pete Carroll. And I think that move is going to backfire on them tremendously, as they're going to have a new head coach who probably isn't that experienced, because I don't even know who it is. We have an inexperienced head coach. Geno Smith is like half and half as a quarterback. He's kind of meh. They went 9-8 the last 2 years. One was good enough for a playoff berth, one wasn't. When it was, they got out immediately. So I don't think that the Seahawks look that great this year. I just don't think so. LA Rams, when you look at them, I mean, I know they lost in the wild card round, but they would have won had Badgley missed the 54-yard field goal that he usually misses. I think that when you look at it, the LA Rams are one of the most dangerous teams in the second half. They start off 3-6, but then they finished 10-7, so they went 7-1 in their final 8 games. Their only loss was an overtime loss to the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best teams in the NFL. And I really think that the Los Angeles Rams could actually, even without Aaron Donald, still make something of themselves. And the rebuild is seemingly over. And the Arizona Cardinals, again, they did look better under Jonathan Gannon, even though they were still only 4-13. And I mean, Kyler Murray, he has done done things, and I'm not saying the Cardinals are going to be good, but they do have the number 4 overall pick in the draft, and the Cardinals could do something useful. I'm not really taking them seriously yet, but if they do something good in the draft, I mean, we've already seen what Kyler Murray can do. And we've already seen that. Okay. Now for the NFC South. Buccaneers, you gotta take them seriously at this point. Because everyone counted them out last year when they lost Tom Brady, and they went 8-9 with Brady, and then Baker Mayfield went 9-8. People always say that, Baker Mayfield is trash. He really isn't, and he actually did win a playoff game before in 2020, the wild card against the Steelers. So I guess Baker Mayfield does good when teams start off really hot and then they have a late season collapse, because the 2020 Steelers also had the same collapse the 2023 Eagles had. The Buccaneers, again, they do look like a very formidable team. Mike Evans, Mike Evans does play very well. And I think that the Buccaneers are a team that you just got to take seriously, because you counted them out this year, and look what they did. They started off 4-7, and they came back to win the division. Todd Bowles isn't always a great head coach, and he can't really win close games, like how he messed up in the game against the Bills, against the Texans. But there's a reason why Todd Bowles wasn't fired, because when he can coach correctly, he does a pretty good job at it. Okay, so that is that's that. For the Saints, again, Dennis Allen isn't a great head coach, but towards the end of the season, he did begin to show what the Saints' true potential could be. They didn't make the playoffs, but that's only because of tiebreakers, and they still finished the season off 9-8, which is a notable improvement from previous years. So Dennis Allen is being given a second chance, and I think that the Saints could still, do well. I think the Saints could. I think the Saints could still do something useful with themselves. Now, the Atlanta Falcons are a team that fired their head coach, Arthur Smith. They do have some good weapons, but I'm not sure that the new head coach is going to utilize them properly. And as a result, I'm reluctant to take the Falcons seriously, unlike the Bucs and Saints. And the Panthers, I'm definitely not taking seriously, because they don't even have the number 1 overall pick, so they can't even draft an elite quarterback. The Panthers are going to be in a rebuild for a long, long time. Now, for the NFC North, this is, I think, the most stacked division where every single team has to be taken seriously. Because the Bears, they're going to draft Caleb Williams. Eberflus has shown his potential as a head coach as the season went on. And they have weapons. They have weapons on their team. Now, for the Minnesota Vikings, I think that for the Vikings, Sam Darnold is their quarterback. Oh, for the Falcons, they have Kirk Cousins now. I probably should have taken him a little more seriously than I did. Still taking him that seriously, because Kirk Cousins hasn't played a good season of football since 2019. The 2022 Vikings campaign was an absolute fluke, and you can't take that seriously. But for the Vikings in 2024, they have, Sam Darnold as their quarterback. But they have Aaron Jones. They have a franchise running back now. And I don't know who they're going to draft. If they're going to be able to get J.J. McCarthy or not, but you never know. For the Vikings, I think that the entire North was taken seriously, because then you have the Lions, who just made the NFC Championship game. The Packers, we saw Jordan Love have a breakout season, going 9-8 and winning a playoff game. Jared Goff won 2 with the Lions, and they were very close to beating the 49ers and taking on the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58, and I think the Lions win that matchup. So I'm taking the entire division seriously. Honestly, I think it's going to be the Lions who win it, but it really could be anyone. Now, for the AFC East, the Bills and Dolphins, you got to take seriously. The Dolphins really choked everything away at the end, but the Bills, we saw them decline. We saw the Bills decline. We saw the Dolphins improve, and all the Dolphins have to do is be able to beat a team over 500 consistently, and they could win the division. And the Bills, McDermott has, I don't think he's the answer. I don't think Josh Allen is the answer either. The guy had 22 turnovers in the season, so he's even more of a turnover machine than Jalen Hurts. And Now I don't even have Stephon Diggs anymore. The Bills, I'm trying to take them seriously, but it's kind of hard to. Dolphins, Tua is a system quarterback, but they have Tyreek Hill. They have Devon Achane, so they should be fine. Now, for the Jets, a lot of it comes down to, can Aaron Rodgers play? I still think that the answer is no. He won't be able to play the way they need him to. And then you just have the question of, is Zach Wilson going to be that quarterback, or is it going to be Trevor Siemian? I don't think they're doing Tim Boyle after the Hail Mary and then putting up only 8 points against the Falcons. I don't think they're going to put Tim Boyle back in an NFL game ever again. I think that, you look at the Jets, they were 7-10, and they really should have been 5-12, but they got lucky twice. They got lucky in the game against the Eagles that Nick Sirianni tried to win the game on 39, and it backfired with perhaps the most backbreaking turnover of the season for Philadelphia. And in the Giants had a 99.9% chance to win, and they choked it away by not being able to get a first down with Saquon Barkley, with Graham Gano missing a 30-yard field goal, with Dable deciding not to go for it on 4th and 1, even though he absolutely should have, with the Jets being able to get that spike off with that penalty, because even though the penalty was declined, it stopped the clock. If not for that, they'd have to spike it right there and either attempt a Hail Mary or a 64-yard field goal. They were able to then make a 35-yard field goal and then win the game in overtime. But it was a miracle. I've heard it being called the 24-second miracle. It was a miracle for the Jets to win that game against the Giants. And a lot of their games, just they needed to be very lucky. They needed luck to win. I still really don't think Aaron Rodgers is a terrible O-line will be able to do anything productive. And the Patriots, they just fired Belichick, so unless they get a really good quarterback in the draft, they're going to be struggling. For the AFC West, Chiefs, I'm not even going to get into the Chiefs. Of course, to take them seriously. The Raiders, I think that Antonio Pierce getting them 5-4, I think it could be a playoff level coach. You do have to understand the quality of team that he's beat. I mean, the Giants and Jets, the Chargers, the Broncos, they're not good teams. But the Raiders also beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. So Antonio Pierce knows what he's doing. I mean, there was a time where it looked like he didn't deserve to be the Raiders head coach after they had just lost 3-0 to the Vikings. But as an interim head coach, he actually did a pretty good job. And I don't want to say he nearly got the Raiders to the playoffs, because he didn't, but he could have gotten them there. He absolutely could have. He absolutely could have. But I think that the Broncos, I think, depending on who their quarterback is, they could be good, but I don't know. Sean Payton is all right as a head coach. And the Broncos did have a turnaround this season, starting 1-5, but then going 7-4 the rest of the way to finish off 8-9. And the Chargers, now they have Jim Harbaugh, who is perhaps the hottest coach on the market. Justin Herbert could now be utilized the proper way. I don't want to say Brandon Staley was a terrible head coach, because he did lead the Chargers to the playoffs, and his all-time record was 24-25, which is in total garbage. But he was just doing terrible things this year, especially. And there's a reason why he got fired. There's a reason why Brandon Staley got fired, which probably should have been after he blew a 27-point lead in the playoffs. For the loss, for the AFC South, the Colts, they're going to have Anthony Richardson back. And I know he didn't play a lot, but with how Shane Steichen was still able to deal with the season and nearly take them to the playoffs regardless, I think the Colts are in good shape. I think the Colts will make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to win the division. I think it's going to go to the Houston Texans. I mean, Stroud, Nico Collins, they now have Stephon Diggs. They have Will Anderson Jr. on the defensive side of the ball. DeMeco Ryans has proven himself to be one of the best head coaches in the NFL. And the Texans, I think, are going to win the Super Bowl in the very near future. And the Texans could be a team that really challenges the Chiefs dynasty. If it's any team that I see it being, it's the Houston Texans. Because the Texans went from being one of the worst teams in the NFL to being one of the most formidable opponents. And Jaguars, and after the league season collapse with Doug Peterson, I really think he lost his touch with coaching. And I see that the Jaguars struggling in 2024. Titans, I think that they're in a rebuild. For the AFC North, Ravens, if they can stay healthy, they'll be a threat. Browns, they're not keeping Flacco. They're putting Deshaun Watson back in, so I don't think I'm taking the Browns seriously yet. Steelers, they always get lucky, so you never know if the team is legitimate or not. And the Bengals, if Joe Burrow's back, I think the Bengals will be a big threat. So, again, I think a lot of teams are threatening this year. Not all of them are, but a lot of them are. And there's a lot of teams I think that we could see as legitimate contenders. Personally, I think that the Texans have a really good shot of winning the Super Bowl because if they can get more experienced, I mean, we saw how close the 2022 Eagles got as the 2021 Eagles were in a very similar position to the 2023 Texans. So these kind of hot teams that just get hot can fizzle off. But a lot of times the factor in there that makes them frauds the whole time, the Texans didn't have that. They didn't really have a factor that made them look fraudulent, unlike some of these other teams. Like the 2022 Giants, for example, they were frauds the whole time. And they didn't get exposed in the playoffs because the Vikings did instead. But there's a reason why they got exposed as frauds in 2023.